As someone who grew up with the N64, PS1, and 2, I am a huge fan of 3D platformers, but unfortunately the past generation or so, we haven't seen a ton of support or love for the 3D platformer genre outside of an occasional 3D Mario and maybe a Ratchet and Clank on PlayStation. But I think there's quite a bit more 3D platformers out there than you would think, and that's what this new video series is all about. But hello everyone and welcome back to another video. Today I want to highlight 3 3D platformers that maybe you heard of, maybe you haven't, and hopefully you'll come away from this video with a few great game recommendations. These are 3 that really stand out to me dating back to the PS4, Xbox One, and of course Switch, but we'll make sure to highlight which platforms you can get the games on, what games they remind me of so you at least have kind of a baseline comparison to earlier 3D platformers you may have already played, and certainly the price at the time of recording this video. But definitely let me know down in the comment section below, do you like 3D platformers? Do you like videos like this? Because I certainly would love to continue making more games in this series. But without further ado, let's go ahead and take a look. Now first up, I want to talk about a game called Poi. I discovered this back on the PlayStation 4 not long after I'd played Yooka-Laylee and was in search for any other indie 3D platformers that were a bit lesser known. As I understand it, Poi was developed by a small 2-person team called Polykid based out of San Francisco and was created in the Unity engine. And it was really meant to be a callback to the golden era of 3D platformers on the N64. The game begins by allowing you to choose from one of 2 young explorers who embark on a quest to become this master explorer of sorts, with this older veteran explorer guy kind of sending you out to various parts of the world which act as your different themed worlds you'd expect to see in other traditional 3D platformers. I rarely, if ever, play 3D platformers for story, but Poi Story really serves as a nice light-hearted backdrop that kind of frames up and supports the 5 to 8 hours of gameplay well. What immediately sticks out to me with any 3D platformer I play is character movement, and Poi really shines with its classic 3D platforming mechanics that longtime fans of the genre will find familiar yet subtly refined. Familiar in a way that you have your similar Mario 64 type side jumps in the 1, 2, 3 flip jump forward, but refined in a unique way because you can almost cheese your way up certain areas of the level to reach a collectible or to prevent what would otherwise be a missed jump. But you can keep yourself afloat and kind of keep using the side of a tree, for instance, to keep pulling yourself up. That kind of platforming really feels by design and keeps the gameplay fluid and fast, and especially fun for folks that might have the speedrunning itch. Now, the primary collectible in Poi are these medallions. And each time you enter a world, there'll be a brief clip indicating what you need to do, or at least directionally where you need to go in the level to collect the medallion. It's unapologetically mirroring the design of stars in a 3D Mario game in that sense, but like your 3D Marios, each world has plenty of these medallions for you to keep coming back to collect them all. And in true Explorer fashion, thankfully medallions are not the only collectible you'll want to find. As you find coins scattered around levels, you can purchase additional gadgets from the old man I mentioned earlier, including a shovel and a camera. In each level, there are plenty of fossils to dig up and animals to take pictures of to make note in your Explorer notebook. And each time you capture a photo or collect a fossil, that'll be collected forever, even with repeat visits of the level for more medallions. So you won't have to collect the fossil or take the photograph more than once, even in the instance that you would die after having collected those things. And collecting each of these items really requires you to explore every inch of the level, which, in my opinion, are the best kind of 3D platformers. But it's worth mentioning that you don't have to collect everything in each level if you don't want to, and once you've collected enough medallions, you can go back to the central hub area where that man is, speak to him, and can continue to progress to the other floating islands. One other thing that always stands out to me about 3D platformers are the soundtracks, and Poi's music is not going to hold a candle to the likes of Dire Dire Docks or games like Banjo-Kazooie, but I do find that it has this melodic, celebration-like quality to it that perfectly complements the game's adventurous tone. When capturing gameplay, especially in the first area, it oddly reminded me of the main theme in Pixar's A Bug Life, which I guess feels appropriate given Flick's adventure in that film. In closing, Poi is certainly a hidden gem 3D platformer that I don't hear many people talk about. Movement is smooth and responsive, there's plenty of fun things to collect in its open levels that never feel too big or too small. The developers were absolutely successful in creating a game that harkens back to the golden era of 3D platformers, so if you're a fan of the genre, this is definitely one to check out. Next up, we have Song of Nunu, a League of Legends story developed by Tequila Works, the same team behind a game called Rhyme, if you've ever played that. Now, I've personally never played League of Legends. The MOBA genre is just not quite my cup of tea, but when I originally saw this game, it immediately caught my eye. To frame up the story briefly, you play as Nunu, a curious, adventurous young kid, and his loyal companion, Willump, who's the last known living Yeti. I won't spoil anything, but unlike Poi, the story in Song of Nunu is a much more moving and emotional journey. It kind of has this DreamWorks or Avatar: The Last Airbender type energy to it as well. Throughout the game, there's all kinds of themes about friendship and resilience woven in, and really is a bit of a coming-age story for this young kid named Nunu. From a gameplay perspective, the best way I can describe Song of Nunu is a long-forgotten 3D action platformer on the PlayStation 2, and I mean that in the most complimentary of ways. The game blends classic 3D platforming elements with quite a bit of puzzle solving and exploration through these zoned and often linear areas. Unlike Poi, the focus here is not on collecting a bunch of stuff, dipping out of a level and then jumping back in. The narrative is really at the forefront here, and that kind of serves as your guide throughout the game's 6 to 8 hour adventure. Now, truthfully, I was initially hoping the game would be more collectible focused, and there were far more environmental puzzles than I expected, but once I kind of reframed my thinking a bit and accepted the game for what it was, I thoroughly started enjoying my time with it. I just want to make sure I'm clear about that so folks don't get the wrong impression when they also play the game. But back to gameplay specifically, a mechanic that I love that was integral to the puzzle solving is this flute that Nunu can play. Oftentimes you'll use this flute to raise or lower platforms, and that will allow Willump to get to a lever or some other objective to be able to progress through that area. It's hard not to make the Ocarina of Time comparison because the notes you play are actually mapped to different buttons on the controller, so it can be a puzzle in and of itself to remember how to play certain notes when prompted on screen, but I always found these segments to be enjoyable. I also cannot emphasize enough how much Willump feels like a living and breathing companion. He'll show frustration or confusion when you don't know how to solve a puzzle, and during other lighthearted moments, he's incredibly expressive. He says a whole lot to Nunu, and the player of course, without being able to actually speak. It's a really charming back and forth between these two characters that brought a smile to my face so consistently throughout the game. The game also features a number of combat sequences as you'll come into contact with wolves and other enemies scattered throughout, in addition to boss battles. At times, these can feel a bit stiff, but they never really last too long. The focus of the game is really on its platforming and puzzle sequences, and they always find ways to make clever use of the flute during these moments. There are several other gameplay sequences that I'd like to highlight, but I don't want to spoil anything. Just know that there are plenty of fun surprises that harken back to the PS2 era of platformers, and other moments that'll just have you grinning ear to ear. Now also, unlike Poi, a major standout in the Song of Nunu is its soundtrack. It's a great blend of whimsical and atmospheric compositions that perfectly complement the game's tone. Each track is tailored to the environment, which really helps to bring life to the frozen landscapes that you're going to be exploring. While the next game I'm going to talk about is undoubtedly the favorite of the video, Song of Nunu is such a close second. It's a beautiful game with two memorable, charming characters at its core, unique platforming and puzzle-solving mechanics, especially when using the flute, and overall, just a delightful game that reminded me of the more simple games I played during my childhood. I'd also be remiss not to mention that I recorded a great podcast with a friend of mine here on YouTube, Return to Mother Base, where the both of us played this game and then recorded this hour-and-a-half long discussion talking about our love of 3D platformers and also the Song of Nunu, so be sure to check that out as well. I've been wanting to cover and highlight Tinykin on my channel ever since the game's release. I think it's one of the best 3D platformers released in the past decade, and it quickly became one of my absolute favorites. Developed by a smaller indie studio called Splash Team, you play as this little space explorer named Milo, who crash lands into a home on Earth. But not the Earth quite as we know it, because he's the size of a small bug. So you're tasked with navigating a house inhabited by these quirky, weird insect creatures, all in an effort to assemble a ship that might help him return home. It's worth mentioning that I've completed Tinykin 3 times since it released, and I started a 4th playthrough to capture footage for this video. So it goes without saying that I absolutely adore the game and its gameplay, which delivers a refreshing take on 3D platforming. You'll guide Milo through vibrant, large, open-ended levels throughout this home, and each feels distinctly unique from the next. Each room is also overflowing with fun collectibles to find and mini quests to complete. Now, as the name of the game references, you collect these things called Tinykin, which are adorable, colorful little creatures that are central to the gameplay. Each type of Tinykin has unique abilities, like the ability to carry objects, build upon one another, and extend to create bridges or explode obstacles. Ultimately, the Tinykin are integral to solving puzzles and navigating the environments in such a refreshing and creative way. It's also worth noting that there's no combat to speak of in the game. It's purely about entering these rooms, exploring, collecting pollen, which acts as the game's currency, and doing a series of quests for characters. These tasks are often fetch questy in nature, where you might have a few insects longing to fill a picture frame with a photo. So then, you and your Tinykin search the room for the photo or frame, bring it back to the insects, and are then rewarded with something you need for your ship. It's a fun loop, but I cannot emphasize enough how the freeform exploration is the main draw of Tinykin. To get to the top of one of these rooms and just to be able to pan around and see all of the remaining collectibles in the world is just such a exciting feeling for longtime fans of Collectathon 3D platformers. And how you so seamlessly navigate these environments and are constantly identifying more pollen and other collectibles to find is not only rewarding, but it's incredibly addicting. It really plays and cues in on that N64, PS1 era Collectathon 3D platforming energy, like your Donkey Kong 64s or Spyro the Dragon, where you'll spend far too much time exploring every nook and cranny in an attempt to find those final collectibles. Not to mention that you have this little bar of soap that you can hop on at the click of a button and kind of Tony Hawk your way around the level as well. Tinykin, I can't emphasize enough, is just so effortlessly fun, and it's a game I couldn't put down. The soundtrack of Tinykin is also a delightful companion to its whimsical world. The music captures the playful and adventurous spirit of the game with tracks that adapt to the environments Milo explores. There are some levels that, as you collect more and complete more tasks, the speed of the song continues to pick up and the music builds upon itself. So by the end, you're bopping your head, grinning ear to ear as you're gliding and skating around the level to find any hidden and remaining pollen. With its imaginative premise and charming world building, not to mention the game's non-violent approach and intuitive mechanics, make Tinykin my highest recommendation. It's goofy, relaxing, fun, and truly just an all-timer 3D platformer. A must-play for fans of the genre. Again, I cannot recommend it enough. Alright everyone, that wraps up part 1 in this new series of 3D platformer Hidden Gems videos. Poi, Song of Nunu, A League of Legends story, and Tinykin. 3 great games. All 3 kind of play a little bit different than one another, so hopefully some fun, unique, varied recommendations for all of you 3D platforming fans, but definitely let me know down in the comment section below. Do you like these types of videos? Leave me a thumbs up if you enjoyed it, and consider subscribing if you haven't already. I want to thank you so much for watching this video, and I will see you in my next one.